to this edition of Border Report Live. My name is Rudy Mireles, and I am your host here in Harlingen, Texas, in the Rio Grande Valley of deep South Texas. Got a great program lined up for you today. In just a little bit, South Texas correspondent Sandra Sanchez is going to join me to talk about the new book from civil rights attorney Jim Harrington. But first, let's go ahead and take a look at some of the headlines making news across the border, starting with President Donald Trump saying that the U.S. has targeted another boat allegedly carrying drugs from Venezuela. The president posted about this on Truth Social, saying in part, quote, "The strike occurred while these confirmed narco-terrorists from Venezuela were in international waters transporting illegal narcotics," end quote. Now, the president went on to say that the boat was headed to the U.S. 3 people on that boat were killed. That appears to have been struck on Monday. Now, you may remember about 2 weeks ago, there was another strike on a speedboat from Venezuela that the U.S. said was linked to illegal drug trafficking. There were 11 people killed in that action. Secretary of State Marco Rubio has defended the strike, saying drug cartels, quote, pose an immediate threat. And on tomorrow's program, myself and our San Diego correspondent Salvador Rivera are going to have a very, very interesting conversation with an attorney on the legality of these strikes. So we're looking forward to that. You won't want to miss that episode. That's happening tomorrow right here on Border Report Live. Also happening across the border, police in the Mexican state of Chihuahua are training up to fight their ongoing war against cartels. 20 Chihuahua state police officers trained with agents from Homeland Security and the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms in El Paso, getting a crash course in high-powered firearms, including rifles with high-capacity magazines and adjustable stocks. Chihuahua State Police are no strangers to cartel violence. They said this training should bring their state a little extra peace of mind. Also happening on the economic front, the world financial markets are in the news this week. If you don't know, right now, the Federal Open Market Committee, that's a group of board members from the Federal Reserve, are meeting to decide whether or not tomorrow they will cut interest rates here in America. Now, amid speculation on how that vote's going to go, and there is a lot of speculation, they're expecting a 25 basis point drop in America's interest rate tomorrow. The Mexican peso, however, has been trading at its strongest since last year, with traders getting 18.36 pesos for every dollar. President Donald Trump this weekend called for lower interest rates, which experts say could decrease the value of the U.S. dollar even further. Time now to bring in our South Texas correspondent, Sandra Sanchez, to talk about this next story. A new analysis of data shows that ICE is increasing the use of ankle monitors to track non-detained migrants whose cases are under review. Sandra, I know we talked about this recently, actually, about the switch to these ankle monitors with, I believe it was Austin Coker. Specifically, we spoke about this too. What can you tell us about this new data?
Yeah, data subject you and I both really like, Rudy, digging in. And the Alternatives to Detention program has long been in use by U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, as you know. There are a couple different ways that they can track migrants rather than other than detaining them in ICE facilities. There are SmartLink, which is an app like a cell phone. They can use ankle monitors, which we're going to talk about, or wrist-worn monitors. Both all use GPS devices. Now, the SmartLink technology got a little heat in the past few years. People criticized, thought people were giving migrants cell phones. They're not. It's an app. It allows them to talk to their ICE person, their counselor, their agent, the person that tells them you need to be at the courthouse at this city at this time. They send pictures. They have telephonic reporting in to the person. It allows them to communicate, and that's about all it does. And it's very convenient for migrants. And so we have seen a huge uptick in the last few years of the use of SmartLink apps and devices. However, in the past month, the latest data shows that actually there was an increase of 1,000 ankle monitors put on migrants and a decrease of 2,000 SmartLink apps by use. So I think we do have a graphic that kind of shows a little bit. We can put some of that up. So you see there still are far more SmartLinks that are being used. It was at 150,000 in July, and that went down to 148,000 in August. And the ankle monitors were at 28,000. They went up to 29,000. Now, what's important here of significance here is that civil rights groups, activists say that the ankle monitors are possibly a punitive way that the Trump administration is using for migrants who are in the country as they wait their asylum, their immigration proceedings, rather than having them in detention facilities. And, that's significant. Over the years, I've talked to many migrants who have said, it's cumbersome. I get blisters on my ankle. I don't like it. How do I shower? And it's a mark. It's a device that's visible, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's just interesting that it's starting to be used again.
Yeah, it's definitely something, like you said, it's a mark. I mean, so often we see, if you see a photo of an individual wearing one, you immediately think, that they've committed some sort of crime perhaps, or, and it could be, something completely unrelated. I've seen photos of, different broadcasters who may have an ankle wrap for their microphone pack. And people often think like, oh, wow, that person must have gotten, let's say, a DUI or something along the lines, despite it just being a microphone battery pack, So it definitely does leave a mark. Now, I wanted to talk about some of those numbers you just said. You said the about 2,000, it was the drop in the SmartLink?
Yeah, the SmartLink went down from 150,000 to about their 148,717. And ankle monitors had been at 28,071. They went up to 29,089. It's a small increase and a small decrease, but it is possibly a new trend that we could be seeing. Now, overall, the Alternatives to Detention program is far more cost effective, always has been. It costs about $4.20 a day to monitor someone in one of these devices. There you see the total tech costs. Whereas a detention of a person costs about $152 per day. So it is a lot less expensive.
And I'm looking at some of those numbers right here and just, kind of doing some napkin math, just looking at this. I'm seeing the SmartLink at 148,000, almost 149,000 out there, coming out to about $142,000 a day. So that's less than $1,000 per SmartLink. But if you look at those ankle monitors, 29,000 costing 79,000.
Substantially more, right? The ratio.
So it makes you wonder if this is, really a good way to kind of cut down those costs. Lot to be seen there. Now, taking a look at these numbers, I wanted to bring these up as well. Can you kind of break these down for us?
Yeah, what we're seeing is this increase in ankle monitors on some of the border communities, like here, South Texas, Harlingen, where we are right now, 317 ankle monitors. That's half of the amount of SmartLink devices that are being issued. And a huge jump in ankle monitors, double the number in El Paso, where Julian Resendez, my colleague, works, almost 800. So, and only less than 400 SmartLinks issued there. So, I do believe that we are starting to see perhaps the start of a trend. We'll see what next month's numbers come to. We have reached out to ICE. They confirmed the location of the numbers that we dug into, but didn't give any comment. They have consistently said the Alternatives to Detention program is a good way to track migrants who are within the system. Just to remind people, there are like 3.5 million backlogged immigration cases waiting to be heard in the U.S. immigration courts. And so this is a way for, if they qualify, if a judge allows this, the migrants to live within the communities and have a device that tracks their whereabouts, reminds them of their court dates, but they're not under a detention 24/7.
All right. Well, thank you for keeping an eye on this. I know, like you said, data is one of our favorite things to talk about. So just another thing to track for you. I appreciate you doing this, but stay with us. And you at home, stay with us too, because coming up next on Border Report Live, Sandra is going to tell us about the new book from the founder of the Texas Civil Rights Project, Attorney Jim Harrington. Stay with us. Border Report Live is back in 1 minute. Welcome back to Border Report Live. My name is Rudy Mireles, and I'm your host here in Harlingen, Texas, in the Rio Grande Valley of deep South Texas. Sandra Sanchez, our South Texas correspondent, in the house with us today. Sandra, you were in San Juan, Texas yesterday, which is about a 30-minute or less the drive from here in Harlingen. And you had the opportunity to hear from famed civil rights attorney Jim Harrington talking about his new book titled The Texas Civil Rights Project, How We Built a Social Justice Movement. You got a copy of the book right there. Let me pull you up on full screen so we can get that.
Here's the book that has just come out, and apparently it's going to come out in Spanish, hopefully by Christmas as well, he mentioned. Jim is, like you said, he has retired. He's 79, but you wouldn't know it. He's a Spitfire. I knew him. He used to work for the Write for Me, for the Board of Contributors for the Monitor when I was the opinion editor there. He has been a law professor in San Antonio, and he's taught constitutional law for the University of Texas. And he spent the past 3 years writing this book. You know, for 18 years, he worked with Cesar Chavez. And I think, you know, as we're in Hispanic Heritage Month, it's important to talk about these, you know, he was part of what they called La Causa, the movement. He represented a lot of the litigation and the lawsuits for Texas. He grew up in Michigan, in Lansing, Michigan.
Oh, not too far away from me. I'm from Jackson.
That's right. And he and I spoke to his sister as well. They used to see migrants picking crops in the field, and they would go work sometimes. They would go to the Capitol, ask questions. He was very curious about their lives, what towns they went through, and how they got all the way that far north and where they spent their other days. And as he got more and more involved, and he graduated college, and he reached out to Cesar Chavez and asked if they had any jobs open. Well, they needed a lawyer for the ACLU in Texas. And he said at the time everyone was going to California, that was a cool place to go. So instead, he came to South Texas. And he did that for 18 years in the 70s and the 80s. In 1990, he founded the Texas Civil Rights Project. Now, that's a nonprofit still in existence today, still very active, represents migrants, free legal work for migrants, farm workers, and vulnerable populations, LGBTQ, those with disabilities, medical problems. And so, you know, he is the founder of this organization. So let me set up just a minute. We weren't able to have him on the show today because he's traveling. So we recorded him at this event at La Unión del Pueblo Entero. There was about 200 people showed up, and a lot of people from the past. They would get up on stage. They got free books from him if they were mentioned in the book. Some people were so moved they sung corridos, and some people just took the microphone. You could tell they were very comfortable on stage.
Sounds like a perfect way to start Hispanic Heritage Month as well.
You know, it was really entertainment. It was really moving. There were a lot of tears. Everyone from babies in the cradle to grandmas, great grandmas were there, and all recalling the good old days. And so we sat in a corner with him. There is a little ambient sound, and when people went in and out, there's a little beeping of a door. Occasionally you'll hear it. I boosted the microphone so you could hear my questions a little better. We pretty much are running the entire interview as is. So, we hope to play that for you and take a listen. It was an honor to be able to talk to him. Tell me, why did you write this book?
So I wrote the book because I wanted to honor the stories of the people that I worked with, in the farm worker cases, all the litigation that we did, because I didn't want their struggle to be lost to history, and I wanted to pay respect for the sacrifices that they made. So that's why I put the book together.
How long did it take you?
Altogether, with all of the editing thing, it took me about maybe 2 to 3 years to do it.
The Texas Civil Rights Project is an organization that you founded, and as a nonprofit, it still exists today. It was giving great pride to know that the seed of something you started is still working really hard.
Yeah, I think the best thing about organizing is to see it continue. Right. It always continues in different ways, but like being here in Lupe today, and you could see the generations of people that were here and organizing, from farm workers that started with Cesar Chavez. Their kids were here today. Their grandkids were here today. But what you can see is that the movement has picked up, and that people, even though they no longer farm workers, let's say the grandchildren, they're still involved in organizing. This is a fight for justice that they learn from their families, and they're carrying on into whatever part of life they happen to be in. So it's really great to see that. I was really honored to be here.
You're you're talking about the new generation, the current second Trump administration and several changes to immigration policy, workers' visas. I mean, how do you feel about what the state of politics is today?
Well, the state of politics is absolutely awful. You know, what's going on with immigration and virtually everything in our society. We are in a really downturn right now with Trump. But it's not unique in our history. I mean, Martin Luther King talked about the arc of justice, but it goes up and down. Well, I think we're in a really sad state of affairs these days, you know, with the current administration and government, both state and federal. But the way I look at it is that this is just the way the history is. We have periods of progression and we have periods where we're going downward. But I think if you look at the arc of justice, the way Martin Luther King talked about it, it's not a straight shot. I mean, we go up and down, but we move forward. And I think the thing that we have to understand and appreciate is that other people made the sacrifices worse than what we're facing. Worse than what we're facing to get us here where we are today. And we owe it to the people that made that sacrifice to continue going forward.
We're having trouble getting food on our tables. We don't have people to pick the crops, and there is no legal pathway. So what needs to happen right now?
Well, of course, this is just a reflection of stupid policy. I mean, we were doing just fine the way things were until we used this pitch of racism, I think, to get votes, you know, beat up on immigrants. Sooner or later, the government, the people are going to realize that this has catastrophic economic consequences, you know, and hopefully we'll be able to figure out how to work it out.
You spent years working beside Cesar Chavez, this lawyer fighting injustices. Do you feel like we're going backwards?
I don't look at it as going backwards, as we're taking a dip right now. I take a long-term view of this, that the fight for justice has gone on for thousands of years. We're better off than where we were 100 years ago, 200 years ago. But I think it's a challenge and a requirement of us that we keep moving forward, right? Keep not to get to the point where we lose hope. We have to keep going, and I think that's the message that's really important these days. Because if anything, those in power want us to feel that we can't do anything, and then we don't do anything.
One of the issues you fought hard for, the rights of farm workers and protections for farm workers. They talked about women working in the fields with dangerous pesticides. Today we're pregnant, right? How did you feel seeing these people again today?
Oh, it was wonderful. It was great coming back and seeing everybody today. It was so wonderful to come back and talk with people and be able to say I did this because of our struggle together. You know, I wrote this book and I wanted to share it with you. But above all, I just wanted to come back to see everybody. And I'll be back when the Spanish edition comes out.
When will that be?
Hopefully it'll be a Christmas present. We'll see. It's a slow process.
You're from Michigan. You're 79 years old. And you came down to South Texas. It sounds like you fell in love with it when you came down to the culture.
So, you know, the reason I ended up here is because I work with migrant workers in Michigan, right, who are all from the Valley. And I think I had built those kinds of relationships over the years. I did that for 7 summers. And when I decided I wanted to be part of the farm worker movement, be in it, I mean, I could have gone to California. But I thought, no, man, I'm going to go to the Valley because that's where I know people. Everybody's going to California anyway. That was the end place to go. And people see what I could do to help in South Texas. So.
Did you reach out to Cesar Chavez, or how did you get involved?
So I wrote to who so there was a legal program here along with the UFW, right? It was run by the ACLU. So I wrote to the UFW here, do you have a job? They gave a letter to the ACLU project, who actually just happened to lose their lawyer, who left. So I mean, all sorts of coincidences came into play, and I just happened to be at the right place at the right time.
And you learned to speak Spanish in seminary when you really wanted to be a priest. Is that right?
Yeah, so that was a fluke that changed my life because I didn't know, in Michigan, and we had to take one or two languages. We had to take one of two languages in the seminary, and we wanted French, but that was not the option. They randomly gave me Spanish, and that changed my life.
How would you characterize the book? Is it a memoir?
I like the way it is here, just a story about how we built a social justice movement. So part of his memoir, I had to put parts in because that's what they said, you have to tell your story, so I had to put some of that in. But I like the way that this is a story of a social justice movement.
In all the pictures that I've seen from the past, I mean, you're kind of the lone white man, right? The way to go. Did you ever feel outside, or did you feel embraced by the movement?
No, I always felt embraced by the movement, right? I mean, I think there was a lot of appreciation that you had a gringo show up. It was a step of solidarity, and I think people appreciated that. And also people in the movement, the farm worker movement, were used to that happening, right? Because that was going on a lot in California. There was a lot of young Anglo people doing this. So.
And did you work with Cesar Chavez a lot? Did you see him a lot?
Well, I wouldn't say a lot, but I represented him in Texas. Anytime anything came up, right?
And Dolores Huerta.
Yeah, and Dolores was here too, and is still in touch with her. She actually wrote a little paragraph here for the book. Very nice of her.
There was a lot of sentimentality today, a lot of tears, a lot of emotion.
Right.
You could tell there was so much behind everything that they went through, more than you can just talk about, right?
Right. I mean, yeah, it was homecoming. And people remember the sacrifices they made, their family, the people who are no longer with us who were part of that struggle. Yeah, there was a lot of emotion. It was very nice. It was all very nice.
All right, Mr. Jim Harrington, anything else you want to say?
No, thank you. It was an honor to be back in the Valley and see everybody I worked with.
Wow, what an incredible individual. Just listening to him. I know we were passing notes back and forth during that. Just so many things he and I have in common, being both from the Lansing area in Michigan. So pretty cool to hear. And this kind of just goes to show the connectivity, that the border has with the rest of the country. So often a lot of people think, if it's not in South Texas or California or Arizona or New Mexico, it's not really, it doesn't really impact me. But, him talking about the farm workers that were coming from the valley to work in the fields in Michigan. My father and some of his brothers, my uncles, some of those farm workers that made their way up in the late 60s and early 70s up to Michigan to in search of a better life. So it's great. What a great interview. What a great job, Sandra. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, no, he's wonderful, and we connected, and he will be on the show in the future, he says.
Well, as soon as he gets that Spanish book printed, we're calling on you, Mr. Harrington. We appreciate your time, and thank you so much for getting this interview. But stay with us because we're going to continue our conversation right after the break. Border Report Live is back in 1 minute. Welcome back to this edition of Border Report Live. My name is Rudy Midela. Sandra Sanchez, our South Texas correspondent, joining us today. Sandra, what are you working on this week?
Well, today, a couple representatives from a nonprofit called Kids in Need of Defense, acronym is KIND, actually went down to Honduras last week to see the situation on the ground. As you recall, we've been talking about this. The Trump administration has recently wanted to send back hundreds of Guatemalan and Honduran children who had crossed the border and come into the United States unaccompanied minors, as they're called. And so a couple of these representatives went down there. Some astonishing facts they mentioned. There is only one shelter in Honduras available to receive children who crossed unaccompanied. And it has 15 beds, maybe could hold 20 children to sleep at most. The space is very small. And the other thing is that we're talking 400 children possibly could be sent back. As you know, this is being held up in the courts. There are legal challenges to this. But, the other thing they're saying is that there are children and they haven't got in touch with parents. The parents don't know the children could be coming back. There's no record saying what town the child lives in, where they should contact. They said in Guatemala, a lot of legwork has been done on the ground. Now, they just held a press conference a couple hours ago, so we're working on this story for you. But they're saying in Honduras, there's not been enough setup, and they're afraid to send these children back to potentially unsafe areas.
Well, we look forward to your reporting on that, and that does it for today's episode. Thank you so much for watching.